The morning sun shimmered over Denver International Airport, painting streaks of orange across the runway. Passengers hustled through security lines, clutching coffee cups, murmuring about vacations, family visits, and business meetings. Flight 782 to Miami looked like any other flight on that bright Saturday morning, a simple 3-hour journey across the heart of America. Inside the aircraft, Hayes, a 29-year-old flight attendant with 5 years of experience, moved with quiet efficiency. Her calm smile never faltered, even when she was tired. She'd seen it all: crying bobbies, nervous flyers, delayed departures. But today, everything seemed smooth. The passengers were polite, the air cool, and Captain Reed's pre-flight announcement came through with steady confidence. "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Reed speaking. Weather looks clear all the way to Miami. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight." Smiled faintly as she adjusted the galley latch. She'd flown with Reed and his first officer several times. They were professionals, precise, composed, the kind of pilots that made everyone feel safe. She trusted them completely. As the engines roared and the plane lifted into the sky, felt the familiar pull in her stomach. The cabin tilted, clouds swallowed the windows, and the land below shrank into a patchwork of green and brown. Another day at work, she thought. An hour into the flight, everything remained peaceful. Passengers read newspapers, watched movies, or chatted softly. The soft hum of engines filled the air like white noise. Poured coffee for an elderly couple in row 10, laughing at the man's gentle joke about sky prices. Then turbulence hit. It came suddenly, a violent jolt that sent cups rattling and passengers gasping. Grabbed the nearest to steady herself. "Please, everyone, fasten your," she said, voice calm but firm. The plane rocked again, harder this time. Overhead bins rattled. A baby began to cry. She waited for the captain's reassuring voice over the intercom, as always. It never came. Seconds stretched into minutes. The turbulence eased, but the cabin lights flickered. Picked up the intercom. "Captain Reed, do we have an update on turbulence conditions?" Silence. She tried again. "Captain Reed, this is, do you copy?" Nothing, only static. A twinge of unease stirred in her chest. She turned toward the cockpit door. Normally, Reed would answer instantly. He prided himself on keeping the crew informed. But now there was only silence. "Everything okay up there?" whispered a passenger in the front row, sensing her hesitation. "Just routine checks," she lied with a polite smile, though her pulse was already climbing. She reached for the cockpit phone again, no response. That's when she made her decision. She grabbed the emergency access key and hurried toward the front. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her shoes thudded softly against the carpet as she reached the reinforced door. She knocked. "Captain Reed, first officer." No sound. She pressed her ear against the door, hearing only the faint hum of instruments inside. Something was terribly wrong. Her fingers trembled as she inserted the key, turned it, and pushed the door open. The sight froze her blood. Both pilots were slumped forward, motionless, their oxygen masks hanging uselessly from their faces. Reed's hand dangled near the throttle, his head rested against the control panel. Warning lights blinked softly across the dashboard, painting their faces in red and amber glows. Sneeze weakened. "Oh my God," she whispered, rushing forward. She shook Captain Reed's shoulder. Nothing. She checked for breath, faint, shallow. Pulse fluttered weakly beneath her fingers. They were alive but unresponsive. She looked around the cockpit. Everything appeared steady, the plane cruising at 30,000 feet, autopilot engaged, sky stretching endlessly beyond the windshield. But inside that cockpit, silence screamed louder than any alarm. Swallowed hard, her training kicking in through the fog of panic. Step 1, assess. Step 2, communicate. She reached for the radio, hesitating for just a second before pressing the button. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Mayday, this is Flight 782. Both pilots are unresponsive. Repeat, both pilots are unresponsive. Her heart pounded so loud, she could barely hear the static-filled reply. At that moment, somewhere between the Rockies and the endless blue, one woman realized she was now the only conscious crew member controlling a commercial aircraft carrying 179 people, and no one on board had any idea what was about to happen. The radio hissed with static. For a moment, thought no one had heard her. Her fingers trembled against the microphone button as she tried again. Mayday, Mayday. This is Flight 782 from Denver to Miami. Both pilots are unresponsive. I repeat, no flight crew is conscious. Her own voice sounded foreign, thin, almost mechanical. Then through the crackle came a voice. Flight 782, this is Denver Center. Copy that, you're declaring an emergency. Yes, please, I need help. His breath came out uneven, her eyes darting between blinking instruments. She had never seen so many lights flashing at once. Denver Center to 782, stay calm. What's your name? Hayes, I'm a flight attendant. A pause followed. She could almost imagine the controller's stunned expression on the other side. Okay, he said slowly. We hear you loud and clear. Listen carefully. Is the aircraft stable? Looked around the cockpit. The plane hummed smoothly through the upper atmosphere, clouds stretching beneath them like endless waves. The altimeter held steady. For now, they were flying fine, on autopilot. Yes, stable, she replied. But both pilots, their breathing just not waking up. Understood, oxygen masks. Do you see any deployed? She glanced around. Theirs are off, mine's fine. Okay, there could be a pressurization problem. Check cabin altitude if you can. Her eyes scanned the dials. I see 290, she said, unsure what it meant. Copy that, you're safe for now. We'll get medical and flight support on the line. The radio clicked off briefly. Silence filled the cockpit again, heavy, absolute. Felt the weight of 179 souls pressing down on her shoulders. She turned toward the cabin door. From beyond, muffled voices rose. The passengers were whispering, wondering why the captain hadn't spoken. Someone knocked lightly. Miss, everything all right? Forced her voice steady. Just a small technical issue, sir. Please remain seated. She shut the door again, leaning her forehead against the cool metal. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She'd faced medical emergencies, turbulence, even in fire once, but never this. Never flying blind at 30,000 feet. The radio crackled once more. Flight 782, Denver Center again. We're patching in a certified pilot to talk you through. His name's Captain. He'll guide you every step. A new, calm baritone filled her headset. Hello, this is. You're not alone up there, okay? You and I are going to get everyone home. Tears stung her eyes at the steadiness in his voice. I don't know how to fly a plane. You don't have to. You'll just listen and follow my words. We're going to make it simple. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'm listening. Good. First, make sure the autopilot's engaged. Top center panel, see a button labeled CMD. She looked up, spotting it. Yes, it's lit green. Perfect. That means the aircraft's flying itself. You're doing great. How's your oxygen level? Breathing normal? Fine, just shaking. Perfectly normal. You're doing better than most trained pilots would. His confidence steadied her. Her breathing slowed. Her shaking eased slightly. For the first time since she'd opened that door, she felt a flicker of control. She asked quietly, what if they don't wake up? We'll cross that when we have to, he said gently. For now, you focus on keeping that bird level. A chime sounded in the cabin, someone pressing the call button. Then another. Then three more. Passengers were getting nervous. His heart twisted. She couldn't leave the cockpit, not yet. I need to calm the cabin, she said. Go ahead, put the intercom on PA. Keep it short and calm. Swallowed hard, pressed the switch, and spoke into the mic. Ladies, and this is your flight attendant. We're experiencing a technical issue in the cockpit. Please remain seated with your belts fastened. Everything is under control." Her voice, miraculously, didn't crack. When she released the button, her knees gave out. She sank into the captain's seat, staring at the endless blue horizon. She whispered, "I'm scared." "I know," he replied softly. "But right now you're the most important person on that plane, and I'm right here with you. We'll bring them home, I promise." She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and stared ahead at the controls. The fear was still there, but something stronger began to rise beside it. Courage. And for the first time in her life, Hayes realized she might be about to do something truly impossible. The world beyond the windshield stretched endlessly, clouds like frozen oceans beneath her, the sun painting everything gold, yet felt trapped inside a metal cage with 179 lives depending on her shaking hands. She said, staring at the blinking lights, "What if something goes wrong? What if I touch the wrong button?" "Then we fix it," replied calmly. "Listen to me. You're doing fine. The autopilot is stable. Now tell me your current altitude." She scanned the instrument panel, eyes darting across unfamiliar dials. "It says 30,000. "Good, that means 30,000 feet. You're cruising. Let's keep it that way for now." Her headset crackled, another voice joining in. "Flight 782, this is Denver Emergency Response. Medical assistance is standing by for your pilots. Focus on flying. You're doing amazing." She swallowed the lump in her throat. "Copy that." Behind her, the muffled sound of crying seeped through the cockpit door. Someone was praying. Another was arguing loudly. She clenched her jaw. Fear spread fast in a confined space. "The passengers are panicking. I need to go back." "You can't leave the controls yet," he warned. "You're the only one who can keep that plane steady. The best thing you can do for them is stay right where you are." She nodded, gripping the yoke, even though the autopilot was flying. The simple act of holding on made her feel less helpless. Outside, the turbulence returned, gentle at first, then harder. The plane shuddered violently. "It's shaking again." "Copy that. Don't fight it. Let the autopilot ride through it. Those wings are built to handle worse." Lightning flickered faintly in the distance. Pulse hammered in her throat. She thought of her mother, who always hated her flying career. "It's too dangerous," her mother would say. "You should be on the ground, not in the clouds." If only she could hear her now. The plane jolted again, a warning chime sounding on the console. His heart leaped. "What's that sound?" "Just a pressure alert. It'll pass." His voice stayed calm, controlled the steady rhythm in her chaos. "You're doing beautifully. You've got this." Then unexpectedly his tone shifted. "Listen carefully. We need to start preparing for a possible descent soon." "Descent," she repeated, panicked. "I don't even know how to keep it level yet." "I'll walk you through every move," he promised. "But for now, stay focused. The autopilot can't land the plane by itself if your pilots remain unconscious. You'll have to take some control when we bring you down." Her mind spun. "You mean I have to fly it?" "You already are." The realization hit her like ice water. She wasn't just following instructions. She was commanding a 737. Looked out the window again. The vast horizon stretched forever, no end in sight. She whispered, "How many people survive this kind of thing?" "Not many," he admitted after a pause, "but you're not most people." The radio went silent for a heartbeat. She took a slow breath, eyes fixed on the endless blue ahead. Somewhere inside her fear, a spark of determination began to flicker. She reached for the microphone again. "Tell me what's next." "Good," he said. "Now we're going to test some basic control. Place your right hand gently on the yoke. Feel how sensitive it is. Small movements, okay?" She did as he said. The plane dipped slightly to the left, then leveled out. Her stomach flipped. She just moved a 90-ton jet. "Good correction," said. "You've got a natural touch." A weak laugh escaped her lips. I doubt that. No, really, you're smoother than some cadets I've trained. The turbulence eased. For a moment the cockpit grew calm, the quiet hum of engines steady once more. In that silence, realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning. Her fear hadn't vanished, but it had changed shape. It was no longer something holding her back. It was fuel. Every second counted, and she was ready to fight for every one of them. She said, eyes steady on the controls, let's bring them home. The voice on the radio smiled through the static. That's the spirit. Let's start with descent procedures. And as the sun began to fade over the Rockies, Flight 782, once an ordinary passenger jet, became the stage for the most extraordinary rescue at 30,000 feet. The sky was darkening to a deep indigo whence trembling hands steadied over the controls. The rhythmic hum of the engines was the only sound filling the cockpit. Far below, the Rockies stretched like shadowed giants, swallowing the fading light. All right, his calm voice came through the headset. You've got her level and stable. That's excellent work. She exhaled shakily. I don't even know how I'm doing this. You're not thinking, you're feeling it. Trust that. Pilots call it flight sense. You've got it. His confidence steadied her pulse. Still, her body shook with exhaustion. Every nerve screamed that this wasn't supposed to happen. She was a flight attendant, not a pilot. She knew how to serve passengers, handle emergencies, not command a 737 at 28,000 feet. She said softly, how much longer can we stay up here? Not forever, he replied. Fuel levels. Looked over the gauges, eyes scanning wildly until she spotted two dials labeled L and R, both just above halfway. All right, that gives us about 90 minutes before we're forced to descend. But we'll start sooner. Wichita's expecting you. Wichita. Yes, Kansas. Big runways, good weather, best chance of survival. The word survival made her throat tighten. Continued, before descent, we'll run a checklist. We're going to make this as smooth as possible. You ready? Her fingers brushed the yoke. As ready as I'll ever be. Good. Step 1, check your altitude. 28,000 feet. Perfect. We'll start lowering to 15,000. Use the altitude selector, top panel, silver knob. She found it and twisted slowly. The plane responded instantly, nose dipping forward. The sudden lurch made her heart race. It's descending, she cried. Good, that's what we want. Keep an eye on your speed, maintain around 270 knots. Her palms slicked with sweat. She adjusted the throttle as he instructed, her every movement followed by a shift in the aircraft's rhythm. Back in the cabin, the descent triggered a new wave of panic. Passengers shouted as the plane tilted slightly downward. Heard muffled cries through the door. What's happening? Are we crashing? Somebody do something. His voice cut through the noise in her headset. Don't open the door, stay focused. She gritted her teeth, eyes locked on the horizon. The plane trembled, then steadied. Nice correction, said. Now you're descending like a pro. Her breath came out ragged. How do you stay so calm? He chuckled faintly. 30 years in the Air Force. I've seen my share of chaos. You learn to make calm contagious. His words hit something deep inside her. Calm contagious. That's what she'd been her whole career. The one who smiled when others panicked. The one who soothed crying passengers during turbulence. She'd spent years holding fear at bay with her voice. Now that same voice was holding 179 hearts together. Outside, lightning flickered on the horizon. Clouds swirled, glowing white against the darkening sky. There's a storm ahead. I see it. We'll divert slightly. Look left, heading knob on your main panel. Turn it 10 degrees left. She obeyed, the jet responding gracefully. For a brief second, it felt almost natural, like she and the plane understood each other. His voice softened. You've got a steady hand. If you ever wanted to, you could fly for real. A nervous laugh escaped her. One near-death flight, enough for me. The radio crackled again. Another controller's voice came through. Flight 782, emergency crews at Wichita are standing by. You're cleared for priority landing when ready. Copy that, said, then spoke directly to her. You hear that? They're waiting for you. You've already done the impossible, now we just have to finish it. The plane broke through a cloud layer, revealing the faint orange lights of a city far below. Wichita. For the first time since the pilots collapsed, hope bloomed in her chest. She wasn't just following orders anymore, she was flying. She said, eyes glistening, "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he replied gently. "The hardest part's still to come." Tightened her grip on the yoke. Her fear had turned into focus, her panic into purpose. At 20,000 feet and descending, she whispered to herself, "We're going home." And with that, Flight 782, a plane without pilots, continued its quiet, desperate glide toward the lights below, guided by nothing but courage and a calm voice over the radio. The clouds swallowed Flight 782 whole. Darkness pressed against the windows, streaked with flashes of lightning that split the sky open like angry veins. Rain battered the fuselage, roaring like an ocean storm. Inside the cockpit, every warning light flickered red. Whispered, "I think we're in trouble." "Stay calm," his voice said, softer now but still firm. "You're flying straight into a squall. This'll get rough. Grip the yoke both hands." She did. The plane jolted violently. Overhead bins slammed open in the cabin. Screams pierced the air. Her headset crackled with static. "You still there?" "I'm here. Listen carefully. Keep your wings level. Don't fight the turbulence. Ride it." The jet dropped suddenly, a gut-wrenching plunge that made her stomach twist. Her vision blurred for a moment as alarms wailed. "Altitude. Pull up. Pull up." She cried. "You're okay. You've still got lift. Ease back gently, not too much." Her hands shook, but she obeyed. The aircraft slowly leveled, slicing through rain like a blade through water. The pressure in her ears throbbed. She could feel every tremor in the yoke, every vibration from the engines. Through the cockpit door came a new sound pounding, desperate voices. Someone shouted, "What's going on in there?" She bit her lip, torn between fear and focus. His voice guided her again. "Ignore them. Your job's right here. They need you to stay in control." The pounding stopped, replaced by muffled sobs. For a brief second she imagined their faces, mothers clutching children, men staring at like they were lifelines. She couldn't let them down. The storm thickened. A streak of lightning cracked across the windshield, white and blinding. The cockpit filled with light, then darkness again. Her breath came in sharp bursts. "I can't see anything." "You don't need to. Trust your instruments. Horizon gauge, keep it level with the line." She focused on the glowing dials, on the blue and brown split of the artificial horizon. Her hands followed the rhythm of his voice, small corrections, gentle turns. Bit by bit she regained control. "You're doing great," said. "Just hold her steady until we clear this band." The plane lurched again, but this time she didn't panic. She adjusted, correcting the pitch like she'd been flying all her life. She whispered, I think I've got it." "You do?" For a long minute neither spoke. The radio hummed, the storm raged, and somewhere in between found her balance. When they finally broke through the clouds, the world opened beneath them, sprawling lights of Wichita glowing faintly under a curtain of rain. Her heart pounded as she saw the runway lights far in the distance. "I see it, the airport." "Good, we'll line up for final approach soon. But listen, the runway's wet and this jet's heavy. The landing going to be rough." She swallowed. "How rough?" Hesitated. "You'll need to keep it perfectly centered. Too high, you'll overshoot. Too low, you'll crash. I'll walk you through it." In the cabin, Captain's body was now covered with a blanket. Another flight attendant had fastened herself into a jump seat, whispering prayers. The passengers were silent, fear hanging like smoke. took a breath and pressed the intercom. "Ladies, and we're heading through a storm, but we're okay. Please keep your fastened. We'll be landing soon." Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. Calm, assured, the kind of voice that made people believe. Back in the headset said quietly, "You're their captain now." She blinked hard, fighting tears. The reality hit her. Every life on board depended on her next few minutes. She said, voice breaking slightly, "Don't leave me, okay?" "Never," he replied. "We'll do this together." Lightning flashed one last time, then faded behind them. The storm began to ease. Ahead, the runway stretched like a glowing lifeline through the darkness. And as Flight 782 descended through the rain, Wright, the flight attendant who'd never flown a plane, tightened her grip and prepared to attempt the impossible: land a passenger jet in the storm of her life. The rain streaked across the windshield in silver slants. The lights of Wichita's runway flickered faintly ahead, like candles trembling in the wind. Inside the cockpit's heartbeat thundered louder than the engines. "All right," said through the headset. "You're lined up with runway 31 left. You're going to bring her in gently. Copy that." Her voice trembled. "Copy that." "Good speed." She checked the dial, 270 knots. "Perfect. We'll drop to 180 for final approach. Ease the throttle back halfway." She reached for the throttle and pulled gently. The plane responded sluggishly, shaking as it descended through sheets of rain. Her stomach twisted. "Altitude 5,000 feet and dropping," she replied. "Good, you're doing great. Now lower the flaps lever on your left. That'll give you lift at slower speeds." She moved the lever, feeling the mechanical groan beneath her. The plane steadied, wings stretching against the pressure. From the cabin came muffled sobs, prayers, whispered goodbyes. The air was thick with fear. Snuckles turned white on the yoke. "They're terrified back there." "They'll have stories to tell because of you," he said. "Just keep doing what you're doing." The runway lights grew brighter, closer. Rain hammered the nose of the plane as the turbulence picked up again. The 737 wobbled violently, lightning flickering around them. Her headset crackled. "Wichita Tower to Flight 782, winds at 22 knots, gusting crosswinds. You are clear to land. Emergency crews standing by." Translated calmly, "That means it's going to be bumpy. You'll need to counter the wind with small adjustments. I'll guide you." "Okay," she breathed. The jet shook again, tilting slightly to the left. Corrected it with a sharp turn of the yoke. "Nice," said. "That's instinct. Keep her centered." Her eyes locked on the glowing runway through streaks of water. It looked so close, yet impossibly far. The altimeter dropped, 3,000 feet, 2,500. The engines roared as wind slammed against the fuselage. His pulse raced. "It's pushing me off course." "Stay with it. Nudge the rudder pedals left foot, small tap." She followed. The plane leveled again, slicing through the storm's edge. 2,000 feet. "You're almost there," said. "Bring the gear down." She pulled the handle. A heavy thunk echoed beneath them as the landing gear deployed. Her headset buzzed again with Tower's voice. "Flight 782, winds increasing to 26 knots. Proceed with caution." Muttered, "That's strong. You're going to have to fight for this landing." Swallowed hard. "What if I mess up?" "You won't," he said firmly, "because you're not flying alone." The words hit her like a jolt of courage. She took a deep breath. "All right, talk me in." 1,000 feet, eyes forward, "You're doing great," slight nose up. The runway stretched ahead like a silver strip. The plane shook again, buffeted by the wind. 500 feet, called. "Throttle back a little, you want to float her down." She eased the throttle, heart hammering. "We're so close." 400 feet, keep her steady. The plane jolted hard, lightning flashed, the crosswind shoved them sideways. Gasped, wrestling the yoke. "I can't hold it." Yes, you can. Push right rudder. Pull left yoke. Trust yourself. Her arms burned, every muscle straining. The aircraft groaned in protest but straightened just as the runway loomed beneath them. 200 feet. Don't flare yet. Not yet. Now ease her down gently. Pulled the yoke toward her, breath frozen in her chest. 100 feet. 50, 30, 10. The plane slammed onto the runway, tires screeching. Sparks flashed. The passengers screamed. Jam the brakes. It's not stopping. Reverse thrust. Levers above the throttle pull them up. She yanked them both. The engines roared backward, shaking the cabin as the plane slowed violently. Rain sprayed up from the tarmac, smoke curling from the wheels. The aircraft skidded, fishtailing before finally, grinding to a halt halfway down the runway. For a long, breathless moment, there was silence, just the hiss of rain and the distant wail of emergency sirens. Then from the cabin a sound, applause. Sobs, laughter, relief. Sat frozen, tears streaking down her face. Her hands still trembled on the yoke. As she whispered, his voice came, soft and proud. You did it, you landed a 737. And for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to believe it. The roar of the storm had faded into a soft patter of rain on the tarmac. Emergency vehicles swarmed around Flight 782, their flashing lights painting the plane in red and blue. Fire trucks, ambulances, and paramedics converged as passengers slowly unbuckled and stared in stunned silence. Hayes sat frozen in the captain's seat, legs trembling, hands still gripping the yoke. She couldn't believe what had just happened. One moment she had been terrified, staring at two unconscious pilots. The next, she had landed a 737 in a violent storm. 179 lives, all alive. The cabin door creaked as a flight attendant approached. "Miss Hayes, everyone's safe," she whispered. "They're waiting for you." Knees buckled. Slowly she rose and stepped into the aisle. Passengers turned toward her, their faces a mix of relief, disbelief, and awe. Mothers held Bobbies high, couples hugged, and an elderly man grasped her hands, shaking them. You saved us," he stammered. I just did what I had to," murmured, voice barely audible. Her throat was tight, her chest heavy. Outside, emergency crews guided the passengers down the steps. Lights reflected off the wet tarmac. For some, every step was a small miracle. For each grateful smile was a reminder that she had done the impossible. Then she heard a voice over the radio, calm baritone. "Congratulations," he said. She froze. "You're still there. I'll never leave you. You did exactly what I told you. You kept your head, you kept the plane level, and you saved everyone." A thought struck her. Who are you really? Were you a real pilot? There was a brief pause, then he chuckled. "Let's just say experience helps when guiding someone through their first real emergency. You did the hard part." She laughed nervously, tears streaking her face. "Experience or not, I couldn't have done it without you." Outside, cameras flashed as news crews arrived, capturing the scene. Reporters called her a hero, the flight attendant who flew a jet. Social media exploded. Clips of her walking down the steps, soaked and trembling, went viral in minutes. Ducked her head, overwhelmed by attention she never sought. She had spent her career serving coffee, calming nervous flyers, and answering questions, never imagining she would be remembered for flying a plane. Inside the cabin, passengers gathered, hugging each other and whispering prayers of thanks. A young boy ran to, tears streaming down his face. "You saved my family," he said. I just did what I had to," repeated. Medics approached, checking everyone over. One by one, passengers were cleared, glanced back at the cockpit. Captain Reed and First Officer were finally awake, groggy and confused but alive, oxygen masks still dangling. Investigators would later confirm that a sudden malfunction in the oxygen system had incapacitated both pilots, a freak and deadly occurrence. Had she not acted, There would have been no surviving souls on Flight 782. But now, as she watched passengers leave the plane and emergency crews clear the runway, realized something else. Courage wasn't about skill. It wasn't about training. It was about action when everything else fails. A reporter shouted from the edge of the tarmac, "Hayes, how did you do it?" Hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I just listened to someone who guided me, and I never gave up." Behind the camera flashes, behind the cheers and applause, she felt the weight of what she'd accomplished. Every life saved, every hand held, every tear turned to relief. It was real. She had turned panic into survival, chaos into order, and fear into courage. And though she was wet, exhausted, and trembling, one thought lingered. She had just become a legend, a flight attendant who flew a jet, faced death at 30,000 feet, and brought 179 people safely home. The sun rose over Wichita the morning after Flight 782's emergency landing. Rain had stopped, leaving the tarmac slick and shimmering. Emergency vehicles were gone, but their tracks remained, a testament to the chaos of the night before. Hayes walked slowly toward the press area, still wearing her soaked uniform. Cameras flashed incessantly. Microphones were shoved toward her. "Miss Hayes, how did you save the plane? Are you a trained pilot? Do you think you'll fly again?" Her heart pounded. She had faced death at 30,000 feet, yet she felt almost surreal calm now. 179 lives depended on her courage, and she had delivered. But this attention, the cameras, the microphones, the applause, it felt overwhelming. A reporter asked, "What went through your mind when you realized both pilots were unconscious?" She paused. Her gaze drifted to the tarmac where firefighters still checked the aircraft. "Honestly," she said slowly, "I was terrified, but I realized that fear couldn't control me. I had to act. I just focused on what I could do, one step at a time." She looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly. "I wasn't alone. I had someone guiding me. Without him, none of this would have been possible." Questions came from every direction, but only remembered the faces of her passengers. A mother clutching her baby, shaking but safe. A young boy hugging his father. An elderly man smiling through tears. Their lives, all 179 of them, were intact because of her. Later, she would learn that her story spread like wildfire. Airlines across the country called for interviews. News outlets dubbed her a hero. Social media celebrated the flight attendant who flew a jet, yet refused to bask in glory. She insisted the focus remain on the passengers, on teamwork, and on the pilots who had survived against the odds. Courage, she realized, was not about fame. It was about action in the moment. In the following weeks, she received letters from passengers, handwritten notes filled with gratitude, sketches from children, and even a letter from a mother who wrote simply, "You saved our family. We will never forget you." One quiet afternoon, sat alone in the airport lounge, replaying the flight in her mind. The turbulence, the cockpit, the flashing alarms, the fear that had gripped her, and the incredible calm that had guided her. She realized something profound. Fear is temporary, but courage lasts. The FAA launched a new set of emergency protocols inspired by her actions, informally called the Hayes Protocol, training flight attendants to assist in cockpit emergencies. Her courage had reshaped the industry, creating safety measures that would save countless lives in the future. She thought of whose calm voice had carried her through the impossible. She never met him in person. The voice belonged to a retired Air Force pilot volunteering that night. She realized that sometimes heroes come not only in person, but through guidance and mentorship in the moments that matter most. Months later, she returned to flying, not in the shadow of fear, but with confidence. Each takeoff reminded her of Flight 782, the storm, and the lives that had depended on her. She carried their trust like a compass, always steering toward courage. Her mother, once terrified of her career, embraced her after the press interviews. "I was so worried," she said, "but you became more than I ever imagined." smiled. I just did what I had to. And as she walked onto another plane, looking at the passengers waiting for takeoff, she understood something deep. Courage is contagious. One person acting bravely can ripple through hundreds of lives. Flight 782 became legend, and Hayes became a symbol of ordinary people achieving the impossible. She had faced death at 30,000 feet, tamed chaos with courage, and reminded the world that heroes often come in the most unexpected forms, even wearing a flight attendant's uniform. And somewhere high above, the sky no longer seemed terrifying. It seemed full of possibilities. Stepped into the cabin, a quiet smile on her face. She had flown through fear and come out stronger, braver, and forever changed.